I'm Savvy, and today is September 8th, 2017, which means that I am officially 25 years old, and Chewy's here with me to celebrate. So today, I figured I'd make a super cool video for you guys called 25 Books That Have Inspired Me. Number 25, The Disaster Artist. If you don't know this about me, I'm really into like weird cult movies. If you've seen the movie The Room, I highly recommend reading this book. It's kind of the story behind how the movie The Room was filmed. If you watch the movie The Room, you'll be like, wow, Tommy Wiseau is the weirdest guy ever. He's so weird. And then you hear about his life story, and you're like, wow, he's even weirder than I thought. But then when you read this book, you kind of realize, like, Tommy Wiseau is the American dream, guys. And I would say for that reason, read this book. It'll inspire you to follow your dreams. Book number 24. The Meaning of Maggie. So this is the first book that I ever got at BookCon. It's about this like 11-year-old girl who, she's so quirky, she like wants her, for her 11th birthday, she wants stock in Coca-Cola as her gift. And she's like really smart, but also kind of awkward and nerdy. And it takes place in the 80s, so that's always something that I really like. This book is like a perfect example. If you want to get better at doing first-person character voice, absolutely read this book because this author nails it. Book number 23, Azumanga Daioh. So, I don't know if you guys have ever read manga, but this is the first manga I ever read in my life. And so, if you've never read manga before, but you want to try, read this book. What I love most about this is that, like, I feel like when you focus on high school girls as your main characters in books, TV, movies, anything like that, a lot of people like to focus on, like, there's so much drama and everybody's dating somebody and people fight over guys or whatever, and there's none of that in this book, and I love that. It's about a group of 6 girls who go to school together and they act weird with each other, which sums up my high school experience. I just acted weird with my friends all throughout high school and college and the rest of my life. So the next book is Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan. It has 2 different stories that converge with each other, which is kind of cool. I also like that it takes place in Chicago because I take place in Chicago, so I related to that. So book number 21, I can't find my copy of it because I read this book like 13 years ago now, maybe. It's Flowers for Algernon, and it's a very good book. It's the first book that ever made me cry when I read it when I was 12. And I didn't cry about much when I was 12, because when you're 12, life's not that hard, except when you read Flowers for Algernon. Book number 20 is Amelia's Notebook. So if you were a girl growing up in the 90s like me, you probably remember Amelia's Notebook. It looks like a notebook. She's made a little collage on the cover, and then like in the pages, she like writes notes and draws little pictures, and this book inspired me to like make my own notebooks after this style. So when I was a kid, I would like get these composition books and I would tape things on the cover and I would like draw things. If you're in a creative slump, read this book. Number 19 is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This is by Fredrik Backman. He's a Swedish author, so all his books are translated into English. This book actually might be the second book that made me cry, because this book, like, guys, if you're not ready for emotions, don't read this book. But it's, guys, it's beautiful. Yeah, I don't know what it inspired me to do other than cry, but it also, like, inspired me to value life more, I guess. Number 18 is To Kill a Mockingbird. So I read this book twice. I read it the first time when I was 12, the summer after 6th grade. That was the same summer I read Flowers for Algernon. I was on, like, a big literary kick that summer, I guess. I thought I was so cool. Book number 17 is Hyperbole and a Half. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I'm a huge fan of webcomics. I used to draw a webcomic back when I was in high school and college. I've been following her comic since I was a teenager. I was really into it, so when she released this book, I was so excited to read this. Her drawing style is so fun because it's super cartoony. She draws her dog in such a cute way. She does these comics about this dog who like doesn't understand things and has trouble learning things because dogs can be kind of stupid sometimes, and it's funny. Book number 16, I also can't find. I read this book when I was in high school. It's Just Listen by Sarah Dessen. And there are a lot of reasons I like this book. I won't even get into the plot or the content or, you know, how well everything tied together. I just want to get into the way she used detail in this book. So I knew I wanted to be a contemporary young adult author, and when I read this book, I was like, she's a role model. The way she was able to execute realism in her writing, I thought was super well done. There's a part where one of the characters is looking at something that her friend wrote, and she and her friend are kind of estranged, and she was like, I recognize my friend's handwriting and the way that she writes lines through her sevens. And I was like, that's so cool that you had enough realism and enough detail to make it so that one of this character's traits was that she crosses her she writes lines in her sevens when she writes numbers. And that is something that someone would notice about their friend, because like everyone kind of knows their friend's handwriting, but I feel like few authors would take the time to go into the intricacies of various characters' handwriting and what it means to someone's memory. Book number 15, The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things. So if you are looking for more books with really solid, really well-rounded characters because you want to expand on your characters, I would highly recommend this book. Also, I like anything with the word butt in it. The next book is 9 Stories by J.D. Salinger. So, fun fact, I'm a huge fan of J.D. Salinger. My favorite of his stories is this one right here, A Perfect Day for Banana Fish. When I first read this story, I was 16 years old at my summer creative writing program that I went to that year, and we all read this. And me and all of my friends there went crazy over the story for some reason, and we were constantly quoting it to each other. God, I sound like such a nerd right now. I'm like, one summer, me and all my friends would have this inside joke where we quoted J.D. Salinger to each other. The next book is The Year of Secret Assignments. It does one of those things where it has like characters writing in a journal within the book and characters writing letters to each other within the book. If you guys can't tell yet, I love those kind of things. The next book on my list is Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. Like, this book is hilarious. So it's about like these two weird kids in high school who are friends with each other because they don't really have any other friends, and they're like, we're weird guys, and they make movies together. So I like that, like, parts of this is written in screenplay form. I think that's just super fun. Cool. Next on my list is the entire Junie B. Jones series. I didn't want to carry the entire series into my living room though because I'd make a mess, so I brought my favorite, which is Junie B. Jones and the Mushy Gushy Valentine. That's cute. I really liked how Barbara Park took the formula of like a children's story and made like the character voice front and center. The character has like a sassy, quirky, funny voice even though she's a 5-year-old child. This series of books especially influenced me when I went to go write the Forever Home Friends, because I kind of thought, I want to write these main characters who are dogs, they're puppies, so they're going to have childlike voices, but I want them to also sometimes be a little bit precocious or be a little bit funny. So I really appreciate that I grew up with that as an influence because I thought that was really important to me as a writer. Next up is another book that was super important to me as a writer, The Misfits by James Howe. And if you can tell from this vine, I've read this book like 20 times. I got this book when I was in 7th grade and I read it constantly. And the most recent time I read this book, I realized reading this book so many times growing up influenced my writing style. There's like so many really long sentences with like tiny sentences put in between the long sentences, and it sounds confusing, but that's how I write. I write in very long-winded kind of character monologues, the way I talk on videos, I guess. I'm gonna have to edit this so much. All right, book number 3. Again, it's Frederick Bachman with My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. When I was talking about Junie B. Jones with the like using the precociousness in a child's voice, this book does that, but in an adult novel, which is even cooler, right? And this inspired me to be like, I gotta step up my writing game because there are writers like Frederick Bachman in the world. Book number 2 has been one of my favorite books for 10 years. This is An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. So this book I read first time when I was about 14 years old, so I guess now that I'm 25, it's more than 10 years, right? I just thought Colin's arc was believable. For me, I was never as smart as Colin because he's like a child prodigy, but I've always had that worry in me that like, what if I accomplish a lot of things when I'm a teenager or when I'm in college, and then I get into the real world and I never do anything that makes any impact. And so that's kind of the struggle that he goes through. And it is time for book number 1 on the list of 25 books that inspire me. And book number 1 is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So I love this book so much that when I took a break between takes for this video so that my camera battery could charge, I spent my time waiting for the charge reading fan fiction online of Carry On. This book does alternating first person really well, and after I finished reading this book, I was like, I need to try alternating first person, and in the next novel that I wrote after reading this book, I did alternating first person, and I kind of took what I learned from reading this and was like, I can do it. So read this book, guys. It's so emotional. It's so great. It'll make you want to write an alternating first person perspective. Maybe it won't. It did that to me though. And it just like really inspired me to step up my writing. I'm not very good at writing romance, and like that's one of my goals is to get better at that, because I want to have romantic subplots in my book, and I want to have characters that people are really emotionally invested in them ending up together. The romance in this book is perfect. It's the best romance I've ever read in any book. And I was like, that's my goal. Go read this book. Alright guys, those were my top 25 books that have inspired me. I've become a better writer for having read all of those books. So, happy birthday to me. Happy 51st birthday to Star Trek, which has the same birthday as me. Happy birthday to anyone else whose birthday it is today. And happy reading, everyone. See you guys later.